Thank you.
I welcome you, my dear friends, to our Voice of His Kingdom weekly devotion. And today I will be speaking to you from the book of Genesis, chapter 48, verses 17 to 20. Let's read our text together. When Joseph saw his father placing his right hand on Ephraim's head, he was displeased. So he took hold of his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. Joseph said to him, "No, my father, this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He too will become a people, and he too will become great. Nevertheless, his younger brother will be greater than he, and his descendants will become a group of nations." So he blessed them that day and said, "In your name will Israel pronounce this blessing. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." My friends, let's look at the background of our text. Jacob at this time has become very old. He came to Egypt at the age of 130 and lived additional 17 years. So at this encounter with Joseph and his children, he was 147. He probably died shortly after this. Now, the custom, as it seemed in their culture, and at this time, is for the dying father to call his children together and pronounce his final blessings on them. And usually, the oldest gets the choicest blessing. But we can see that even with Abraham, it was different. Isaac got almost all of Abraham's blessings ahead of Ishmael and Abraham's other children. We can see this in Genesis 25 from verse 5 to 6. And Jacob also received the blessing of the firstborn, even though he was the secondborn at Isaac's dying moment. The Lord told Rebekah that the older son, Esau, will serve the younger one, Jacob. It turned out to be so, as Jacob took the blessings of the firstborn from their father Isaac. We can also see this in Genesis 25, verse 23. And here again, at this time, we can see that the tradition or history was repeating itself, as Jacob, even though he was blind, he couldn't see, navigated his right hand on Ephraim, who was the secondborn, instead of on Manasseh, the firstborn. Ephraim, the second child, gets the firstborn's blessing against the protestations of Joseph, their father. Jacob told him he knew what he was doing and that the younger one would be greater than the older one. Okay, let's look at the key lessons from our text. There are two lessons we can learn from the text. Number one is the need to recognize that God is sovereign and only does what fulfills his purpose. He chooses who to show mercy on and chooses who to bless. This is the essence of his work of grace. Isaiah chapter 46, verse 10. He says, "I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please." What we receive, therefore, from the Lord is simply because of him. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. He says, "For it's by grace you have been saved, through faith. And this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God." The blessings we receive, my friends, is simply from God's kindness. The second lesson can be learned from Jacob, who was almost blind. He couldn't see. But he could recognize that Ephraim, the younger one, must be given the blessing due to the firstborn. So our spiritual eyes are as real as the natural eyes and can see in the spirit what our natural eyes cannot see in the open. We must therefore train our spiritual eyes through intimacy with God to see in the supernatural, so God's purpose can be fulfilled in our lives and families. What are the applications? Many choices confront us today, my friends, as we journey through life. But God's choice must be our choice. Jacob followed God's choice of Ephraim instead of the natural choice of Manasseh, who was the older son. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 7. We are admonished to walk by faith and not by sight. Why was this God's choice necessary? He knows the beginning from the end and never makes mistakes. And may we, my friends, follow God's choice for our lives. In marriage, follow God's choice. In career pursuit, follow God's choice. In your major life's decisions, follow God's choice. And may God bless you, my friends, and thank you for watching.